But those little things matter. It means that you're in there. And it doesn't just matter to Airbnb. What happens is I go in and I make these changes, and then I'm like, oh, shoot, like there's a typo, or oh, shoot, this sentence is actually not accurate anymore. We've switched this around or something. So I actually am a more present host because of that. Therefore, it's not even like faking it. It's like you get in, you do it to satisfy Airbnb, but then you wind up satisfying Airbnb in the manner that you actually are a better host at that point because you're in there doing the thing.
Welcome back to another edition of the Hideaways Show, Behind the Curtain. Mike, happy Friday. I feel like we are officially wasp-free in Kentucky. I mean, it's November, by golly, we should be, but we're getting there, right?
It was 6 days from today that we had the big issue last year.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, they know us all too well, and I am one. I don't like wasps at all. Like, I am the biggest pansy when it comes to wasps. I thought my wife was bad. I feel like I'm right up there, but
I think it's that fear that's attracting them. That's what they come to.
They just know where I'm at, and they're just like, whenever Jordan comes to Kentucky, let's just flock to the cabins, right?
Yeah.
So, but we're making progress there. We no longer have 10 to 20 floating around the cabin. Of course, why wouldn't it come like in January, February when no one's, we're lower occupancy on our cabins? No, let's come during October and November when we're 100% booked for the next 30 days, right? Why not?
We've got a 100% book and 100 wasps to join every reservation.
I think it was a drop the ball on our part. We could have offered it as like an upsell amenity, like comes with wasp challenge. Challenge carries a can underneath the sink. You see how many you can kill in under an hour.
There you go.
Oh, it's welcome back to Kentucky. So it's good. Love Kentucky. Love everything we're doing there. But cool. No, I wanted to talk through today. I know you and I have been kind of talking back and forth on this, but we had this conversation the other day. I want to share with everyone else around Airbnb SEO, listing SEO, and what it could actually do for your property. I want you to share with everyone what we've kind of been chatting about, and the result one of our members from our community had as a result of that.
That was a fun conversation. I actually met with one of the lenders on a deal that we've got. He wanted to go out to a brewery and just chat about his rental, and he was asking me some questions on how ours are performing. They're about 2 miles away from each other. But his place is beautiful. I think it was a 3-2 or 2-2. But it's absolutely beautiful. And he was asking some of our numbers, like, are you guys doing okay this month? And I was like, it's October. It's the peak month of us for the entire year. Like, yes, we're doing okay. And he's like, what's okay? And I was like, well, our small ones are doing $7,000, $8,000. Our best one was doing, I think, for $21,000 in the month of October by itself. And he just stared at me. And he's like, what are you talking about? And I was like, what? I don't know how I can make it more clear. Like, this is what it's doing. So we chatted for a while, and he showed me his revenue numbers, and he made $700 at a beautiful cabin in Red River Gorge during the month of October, his peak season. And he was like, obviously this isn't doing well. It's not even, it's not even paying the mortgage at that point for him. And it was his peak. So I started asking some questions about his listing and how he had set it up and how frequently he was updating it and what he was doing with it. And he basically said, I updated the listing when I set it up. And now it's been over a year at that point, and he's not really doing anything proactively to keep it up top. And what had happened is it just fell out, right? It just fell out of the listings. Airbnb was like, this guy's not paying attention. So I gave him a couple of tips, and mainly around like the mindset shift of how he was talking about his listing in his posts and his headline and his listing description. And he texted me the other day, and it was a screenshot of a reservation that he got, and said, I just got my best booking ever. He said, a few small changes to my profile appeared to have helped my Airbnb profile ranking. What he was talking about was the SEO score, essentially, of where your listing shows up on the search engine results page for Airbnb. And just going in, logging the Airbnb, and then changing around his title, cheesed everything. And it was a November 1st. And they actually check in today. But cool. It was a November 1st booking for $3,075 that he got. Now, keep in mind, he made $700 the entire month of October, right? So this one reservation was $3,000. It's his best reservation that he's had, and they check in today. So it's powerful, man. Like the stuff that you do, especially if you're proactive with it, makes a huge difference, like tangible difference for people's revenue.
What was so he said $700 a month. What was this last one roughly? 3,000 you said?
Yeah, this reservation was $3,000.
$3,000.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do some because I'm not good at math. I mean, I'm using a calculator here. Percentage increase on that, 328% increase for his monthly reservation.
And that's if he gets no more reservations. Yeah, I was going to say, that's if he gets no more reservations in November whatsoever. So that was at the end of October. His whole monthly revenue for October was $700. I was like, that's a terrible place to be.
Yeah. But like, how good of a feeling that he got when he got that type of reservation. Like, it almost is probably like one of those like too good to be true. Like, there's no way this is possible. But
what's even better is it followed exactly where we are on whenever we have like a big listing update that we do, or I got super busy and I didn't update a listing for 2 or 3 weeks, and then I go in and I make a couple changes. It's 4 or 5 days every single time.
Yeah, always.
It's always like clockwork. So you go in, you make a few of the changes, and then sit around for 3 days thinking to yourself like it didn't work, nothing happened, and then day 4 there's like 3 reservations that commit every single time. So
it's one of those too where everyone always, you put a huge amount of emphasis on setting up your property and set up your listing. And I'm not discounting that. It's very important to do that the right way right out the gates. But I think it's almost like this weight is lifted off people's shoulders. Like, oh, we're up and rolling. Now people are just going to book. I don't have to worry about photos. I don't have to move things around. Like, I set it how I want it to be. It's
set it and forget it.
Why do I need to do anything if I made it perfect? Like, it's what I wanted it to be. But I think that becomes very obvious once your number of bookings start going down, once you have surpassed the honeymoon phase, because it happens time and time again. People get the first 3 months like, I'm crushing it. Like, this Airbnb thing's easy. I set it up. It's flowing in great. I'm making the money I want to make. And then after that 90-day window's up, everyone's like, the algorithm or something changed. Like, I have no more reservations. It's like, well, what have you been doing? It's like, well, I set up Price Labs, that thing's doing its thing, but I'm like, have you modified your title? Well, no. Have you done anything with your photo captions? Well, no. Like, and it's these small, consistent changes. And it just shows out Airbnb and the algorithm that you care, you're paying attention, you're doing what it takes to allow your property to, stand out to the guests. And Airbnb will reward you for that. They'll reward you in the way of a $3,000 reservation.
Seriously. So I don't understand how they show the way. I know obviously if you go on Airbnb and you look up a place, like you'll see exactly like how they show up in there. What's weird from a host perspective is like the waves that we get, where all of a sudden we'll get 1 reservation and then 4 more that day for the same house. And it's like, what happened today? Like, when I look it up and when other people are there, I'm seeing that the views are relatively consistent. All the tracking software that I have. So it's either the guest mentality shifted, right? Where they're like, oh, payday's on the 1st, we're going to go out and book on the 2nd. And then that's the trend that's happening. Or Airbnb is doing something with who they're showing the listing to. Having worked in Facebook ads, I have full confidence that all of these platforms have enough data on people to be able to put it in front of them when they know that they want to book, right? That's just something that exists in the world today. I don't know why they would do that. Is it like, I don't know. I can't figure that part out. But I will say that the consistency of upgrades has helped us tremendously. Going in and making consistent upgrades and being proactive on it. But the bigger part for me is understanding the mentality of what these platforms want, right? And this is a big conversation that we've been having a lot recently, where even like personal conversations that I've been having with friends and family, where you have to understand the underlying motivation of the platform if it's a platform that drives your patient, right? If Airbnb is going to pay you, you need to understand exactly what they want from that platform. So for Airbnb, they want hosts that are constantly like in and aware of their listings, that are making upgrades, that are good hosts, that are active hosts, that are doing that. And when you start thinking about it, there are hundreds, if not hundreds of thousands of hosts out there that set it and forget it and then miss a reservation or give a guest a bad experience. And what happens is that guest no longer wants to use Airbnb, right? They're like, I'll just go back to a hotel, or I'll go back to Vrbo or whatever. So if you're in there making changes and doing work on your listing, Airbnb will reward you for that, especially over the people that are not. The other thing that I see though all the time is everyone writes about their house because it's a big investment that they put a lot of time into. And this listing is no exception. The very first thing that I saw when I looked at it was the sign. He had a really cool sign going into his house. And it was cool. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm envious of his sign because we need some new signs at some of our properties. So I saw it and I was like, dude, this is killer and such wasted space. Like, why did you put this here? And he's like, I love it. And I was like, that's cool. You are one person and you need 1 million to like it. Right. So I was like, the sign offers no tangible benefit to a person that wants to be on vacation. Right. It'll help them get to the property. Sure. But that's it. What they want is rest, relaxation, reconnection, disconnection, like all of these other things. When they get there, you need to showcase the things in your title and your photos and everything else that are going to, not demonstrate, but like allow them to imagine them doing that thing. If I'm looking for a family reunion where I can relax and sit on the porch in a rocking chair, I need to know that you have a porch and a rocking chair. That's very easy to show in a photo. Like, let's put those things out there. So, and that was some of the other changes that he made, was just reorganizing the photos to showcase. I mean, I think he had like 12 acres and a private pond and all this. And I was like, your sign is not doing you justice here, you know?
Right. Exactly. Like lean into the things that are very beneficial for your cabin. It would make someone want to go there. So
yes.
Hey guys, real quick, the only way we can continue to grow this show to bring on bigger and better guests is if you guys rate, review, and share the show. So if you could take 2 seconds and leave us a quick 5-star review on Apple or Spotify, it would mean the world to us. But even better than that, we'll be able to reach more real estate investors and help them build out their dreams through unique short-term rentals. Now back to the show.
When making those changes, should someone that, like, let's say someone that's listening right now is in a situation where they're like, that's me, like $1,000 a month, like I'm just not making any money, like I don't know why, and I haven't done anything with my listing. Should they go in and change cover photo, title, captions, like 10 things all at once? Or would your recommendation be spread it across a few days? Or
slow and steady.
Slow and steady.
Slow and steady. Yeah. Slow and steady, but steady. It's like dieting, right? Or at least my opinion on dieting. This will probably be controversial, but my opinion on dieting is like lifestyle changes instead of, no more carbs until January 2025, right? So slow and steady, like make changes that are going to last, but do it in a manner that you can do it every week at that time. Right. And it's like you said, everybody like builds that perfect listing and they're like, oh my gosh, I nailed it. I'm never going to look at it again. The funny thing for me is like, I upgrade my description twice a week on every single cabin, but I take the word "the" out and then I refresh it, right? And then I put the word "the" back in, or I take sentence 1 and make it sentence 3 and flip those two, something like that. And what Airbnb sees is I'm in there caring about my listing, right? Same similar description, couple different words here and there. I have 2 images that I flip back and forth, and I'll put image 1 up for a week and then image 2 up for a week. And that'll be my like head or lead image or whatever you want to call it. But those little things matter. It means that you're in there. And it doesn't just matter to Airbnb. What happens is I go in and I make these changes and then I'm like, oh shoot, like there's a typo, or oh shoot, this sentence is actually not accurate anymore. We've switched this around or something. So I actually am a more present host because of that. Therefore it's not even like faking it. It's like you get in, you do it to satisfy Airbnb, but then you wind up satisfying Airbnb in the manner that you actually are a better host at that point because you're in there doing the things.
Right.
So,
yeah. And I would assume, like anyone that's listening out there, I think everyone always says, updating your listing, keep it very basic. I think I couldn't agree more. Like, you don't need to make it super complex. You need to rewrite your entire description, rewrite your entire title, unless maybe your title is just atrocious and maybe that's just an area of, we just need to adjust. That's not a tweak at that point. That's a complete overhaul.
Yeah, redo.
But so for someone out there that's trying to make these changes, I would say keeping it simple is key. Now, this does not mean when you're rotating through your cover photos, pick a handful or 2 or 3 or however many that you want to rotate between.
Yeah.
Don't just rotate your photos and have your toilet be your cover photo. Like, that's not what we're saying. I don't know if anyone would think that, but
there are people that would think that, I promise.
I know. And the reason I say that is because what we're talking about is very basic. It's very simple. Go in and change your title, change your photo. And I think people realize that. But here's the thing. People don't do it. They don't take action.
Yes.
They come to our community.
Yes.
They come to our group. They come to any group and they go, my Airbnb is not performing. What do I need to do? And you ask the same basic questions. Did you get professional photography? What makes your property unique? When was the last time you updated your property? Are you doing dynamic pricing? And it never fails. It's one of those areas typically where someone is like, oh, I'm not doing that, but why? My property is the best in the market. Like, why wouldn't someone book it? And there's always that level of bias. I can totally relate to this when we bought our first property in Texas.
Well, we do have the best property in the market. That's why.
Well, we do now. Like, I mean, we're crushing it. Don't get me wrong. We are number one in the market. But with my first property in Texas, and I think you could probably relate to this with yours, like I was so biased. And I think part of that was, and if anyone from my family is listening, love you guys to death, but my family's pumping into my ear and into my head, this place is amazing. It's incredible. It's beautiful. Like, I can't wait to go and stay there. And I really leaned into that. And I'm like, this place is the best. It's beautiful. How we have it designed, how we have everything set up. It's great. Right. And I really listened to that, but I didn't do much after that. Like I set it up and I was like, hey, this thing's great. And it did exactly what I'm explaining. 90 days did great. And then after that it started falling off. What the heck? Like, what's going on? This was before, you and I had met. And I was like, did I make a terrible mistake? And it all came down to, looking back on it now, photos were good, not great. Yeah. Was I doing listing updates? When I was using RankBreeze at the time, I would more so, whenever my RankBreeze would plummet, I would come in and try to make changes. But unfortunately, I would maybe see a reservation here and there from it, but there were bigger problems as a result of that. So
you said too, your family's saying this place is amazing, and there's a stupid YouTube video that I saw forever ago called Marcel the Show, and in there, have you seen it? Dude, it's the dumbest thing ever, and I watch it probably once a year and just laugh my face off. It is so funny. But in there, there's someone that insults Marcel, and she's this little shell, and she turns around and she's like, compared to what? And as soon as you say that, that's what where my mind goes is, your family said it's the most beautiful house they've ever seen. What's probably true, right? And compared to where they live and the houses that they've stayed in and the experiences that they've had at Airbnbs. That being said, they're probably using Airbnb for a specific reason, right? Hey, we've got to go to Jordan's graduation. We're going to rent an Airbnb that fits the house and has a kitchen. They're not looking for, the box tops, the Dunlop Hollows of the world. They're looking for a place to stay, which is fantastic. That's a perfect reason to go stay at an Airbnb. Then you get your beach house and they're like, holy whatever. They're like, this is absolutely amazing. It's got the swings, it's got the decoration, it's got nice design, everything, which is great. But the people that are staying there are comparing it on a different level, right? They're working all the beach houses next door and all of the beach houses in North Carolina and California that they could go because they just want to go to the beach, right? So it's a completely different attitude. And I'll say that is one of the most challenging parts of this industry is what are you comparing yourself to? Is it just your neighbors or is it every beach town? And you kind of have to figure out what your guests are doing with that. But then B, are you gonna be able to beat that? Can you figure it out and can you beat it? And can you stay objective enough to get all the way through that research process and not be emotionally connected? You're probably a sociopath if you do, but you've got to be able to chop it off and say, hey, look, I don't think I can do that anymore. We've gotten better at that now, but you're right. Your first one, my first two, that was a doozy.
It's just no kidding. But it is very, again, I think almost everyone has to go through the growing pain, I think, of the first property. I'm sure there's a few exceptions out there that someone just crushed it on the first one. They're just I know exactly what I'm doing. I didn't listen. But I didn't listen to the basic things. I love the name that we came up with our place, Sure Thing Oasis. I'm like, this is the greatest name. And I would put it in the title, and it was the first line in the description. And I'm not discounting the fact that having a brand around your property is a bad thing. It's a great thing because it allows people to distinguish your place from someone else's. But having it in the first, in the title, all these different things of Sure Thing Oasis, everyone's like, cool. What's so special about Sure Thing Oasis? What makes them stop and be like, I need to go stay there? The title Sure Thing Oasis does nothing for them. They're like, cool, Sure Thing Oasis. There's another cabin down the road that's called whatever, right? And that did nothing for me until, I realized the value and benefit of having a proper title with keywords and proper photography and going in and making these listing updates, not doing it reactively. I would say trying to do it proactively is very, very valuable because there does become a point in time where if you do react, you're not going to always get the $700 to $3,000 reservation situation. I think that's very, that's incredible. And you could get that. But I think reacting is not as beneficial as being proactive. I think if you're going to be proactive, you're going to see more steady bumps from those reservations versus like doing nothing, trying to react and being like, okay, great. And nothing happens, and they come back and like Mike and Jordan don't know what they're talking about. Like there's at that point, I think there's bigger issues. At the forefront.
I got in the argument with a guy the other day about our revenue numbers, and it was like a 2-sentence argument. He wrote this whole thing out, and it was like, "This is impossible. People falling for this bullshit." And I was like, I guess if you have that attitude, it is impossible for you because that's the attitude you're bringing into this. And I had a screenshot of our host point dashboard. So like, and then finally he said one more thing, and I said, okay, took a little thumbs up. I was like, I don't really have time to do this. I'm going to go out and make more money. Like, this is awesome. That being said, though, there is a big difference in like where people, what kind of title they need. So we're doing this course, right? This Airbnb SEO course where it's 10 emails, one a day, Monday through Friday for 2 weeks. And in the course, like one of the things is about updating your title. And I went to pull some of our top listings, right, from that Excel sheet that we have that has all the 200 grand a year Airbnbs. I went to pull some in there, and one of the ones that I pulled was in Dunlop Hollow A-frame. And do you know what the title on Airbnb for the Dunlop Hollow A-frame is? No, Dunlop Hollow A-frame. No joke. And I looked at it and I was like, well, it's a horrible example to use in what I'm doing. However, the audience that we're catering this to is people that only operate on Airbnb that need to improve their listing. The Dunlop Hollow A-frame does not only operate on Airbnb and does not need to improve their listing, right? So that is not the audience. And I think that's really important to remember in all this is they can do that because the amount of direct reservations they get, the amount of rollover reservations that they get from the kids, and the amount of notoriety that they have in Hocking Hills, like they don't need to list out that they have a king bed. If you know of them, you've probably seen the king bed in 5 videos that came through your Instagram feed. Right. So there's a whole different mentality towards that as well, depending on the personnel. If, Sure Thing Oasis had the Instagram following that Dunlop Hollow A-frame had, it'd probably be a perfect name for the people that are listening to this. Like the Dunlop Hollow A-frame, if they're listening to a podcast on updating your Airbnb SEO, like they probably turn this off in 2 seconds because most of their reservations come from TikTok instead of Airbnb, right? Which is fantastic. But the growing through that, and I think that's a really important point that you made, is you stumble, you get your feet, and then you start running. And that's the way that it's always going to work. And you stumble harder when you think you can start running right away. Right. So it's like, go through those and enjoy them and learn and write everything down and test. And then once you had, like what we've done is we've propelled our properties off of Airbnb because all of November is direct and there's no more availability. Right. So it's like when you get to that point where it's like, okay, I don't need Airbnb anymore, then stop paying attention to your title quite as much and start doing more marketing focus.
Right. It's what I would refer to, it's levels of the game, right?
Yes.
And I usually, I don't even know what level we're at right now, but like Dunlap Hollow is at a different level than we are, but like our first properties was like level 1, like, level 1, get into the game, very basic, very simple, to where I would say we're level 4 or 5 now, or whatever that may be. But like, it's different levels of the game. It's not going to be same for every level. Like going through and focusing on just your Airbnb listing alone, I think is only, it will get you to a certain point. And then you have to graduate to the next level, which is like, okay, let's derive more direct bookings through our marketing efforts. And then, okay, Airbnb maybe becomes a little less important. It's still valuable. I'm not saying abandon it altogether unless you're the Cliffs at Hocking Hills and you never list on Airbnb in the first place. But that's a rare exception. But it's like you have to continue progressing. And what you're doing today will not necessarily always work tomorrow. Like you have to continuously just up your game and improve. But I do think a lot of people do not do the SEO optimization of their, any of their listings, but primarily Airbnb to get that algorithm bump. I think it's a good place to start getting that baseline of steady reservations. And then that's what you can do is you can then progress up from there. You don't need to boil the ocean right away. Start there, start getting reservations on Airbnb and then say, okay, I got this thing figured out. And you're going in, you're making these 2 to 3 times a week updates to your listings. Okay, now what? Okay, let's spin up a social media account. Let's really get that going. Let's promote more direct bookings. Boom. Okay, now our direct bookings are taking off. Like, what can I do then? Okay, maybe I need even better photos to make this place stand out. Great. Boom. Stack it on and continue everything else that you're doing on the background. If that just continues to build up and stack up, you can eventually get to that level of Dunlap Hollow if you so choose.
Yeah.
To where
it's a skill set. It's the foundational skill set that you need to do that. And I'll say that if you like, Dunlap Hollow is a perfect example. They have their little blue cabin, they have their A-frame, they have their cave, and they did it in that order. Right now, they crushed it with the little blue one. They did better with the A-frame and better with the cave. And with that, like if you have properties today that are not ever going to be these like one of a kind $200,000 a year properties, that's okay, because if you advance into that next, all of the rollover from that part, like you've only got 365 days to book, I guarantee you, right? Nobody else is booking for more than that in the year. So if you've got more people that want to get there, which is very easy with however many billion people are on Instagram and TikTok now, well, it's very easy. Like it's a lot of work to get there. However, once you start getting that flywheel turning and the momentum going, like you will get people that are like, do you have anything else? Right. And then you can roll them back over to your other properties that are, slightly different, not quite as nice, but also much more affordable. And that skill set will still benefit you as Airbnb's, as your property goes up in the Airbnb search results.
Yeah. I will say with that, starting with the listing optimizations SEO, and then you look at where Dunlap Hollow is today with their cave house, which is just that thing just crushes it with, I don't even know if they didn't do anything. Like they're just word of mouth for that place, I think probably gets that place booked. Obviously they're doing more, but go back to that little cottage. They have that blue cottage that there's nothing special. Like I think they've updated the inside and designed it nice. It's great.
Yeah.
But as what they've done is they started there and they've continued to progress and go up these different levels. And what has happened is now that the A-frame was their claim to fame, and now the cave house is even better than that. But what it's done as a result is gone down to that little cottage. The brand has elevated that property as well, right? That everything that they've done, it's been a slow process, but it now elevates everything else they're doing. So the cottage itself gets elevated and everything else as well.
We're talking about like target markets, and there's a target market of people that can pay $1,200 a night to stay in a place, right? And then there's a lot of the world that can't, myself included, right? I'm not going to pay, and quite frankly, can't afford right now to pay $1,200 for an experience there. There are a lot that will, and like I said, 365 days in the year, they will fill that up without a problem.
Yep.
For me, it would be cool to go to Hocking Hills and say I stayed in one of the Hollow places and see that their cottage is $200 or $300, whatever. It's like, that's much more digestible. Right. So I completely agree with that. And I think they're serving completely different markets. Correct. There might be rollover markets or whatever, but there's however you want to connect them. I think they are very different markets, and that's a fantastic thing to have, places that fit in different markets, so that no matter what the economy is doing, don't freak out if we say the economy right now, but whatever it's doing, like you'll be okay because you've got a place for them. So
yeah. And I would say, not everyone's going to be like Dunlap Hollow. And Dunlap Hollow, if you're listening, appreciate the follow and appreciate you listening to this amazing podcast, the #1 podcast on unique short-term rentals, by the way. But no, the majority of people out there listening, I would say, is you're not going to be Dunlap Hollow. You're not going to be Dunlap Hollow overnight. It takes time to get up to that point. Yep. So that's where I think there's so much value in what Mike stated in regards to updating your property, focusing on SEO, really, feeding the algorithm what it needs to elevate your listing, to start getting, a bump, a refresh within your reservation, start getting reservations in the door. And then once you get there, maintain that, continue going in and following, a 10-day process or, task list that says like day 1, do this, day 2, do this. Day 3,
that's
this.
It. That 10-day process at the very end, it says start back at the beginning.
Exactly.
Right. Next week, you just rotate every 10 days. Like you do one thing every day for 15 minutes, like you'll be golden. But the bigger part too is like, if you're going to advance off Airbnb, off Vrbo, and off booking.com, right? If you learn the psychology of how those algorithms work and how you're going to stay on top, that is going to benefit you when you get to the real algorithms, right? Of Google, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, like all of these other platforms that you're also going to have to master. And what you learn is not as much the actual algorithm, but the mindset of how to figure it out. What does YouTube want? What does TikTok want? What does Instagram want? And how can I give that to them and get customers in the meantime?
I would say SEO and playing into the algorithm is always so critical and so important, because as you progress, like you said, you're gonna have to favor and figure out the next level algorithm. You're gonna have to figure out what it needs and what it wants. And I can tell you right now, look at our Discover the Hideaways Instagram account. Look at the first few posts. You got to start somewhere. And if we had kept doing that, people would be like, who are these people? But we progressed. We started to figure out, like, because we figured out Airbnb, what Airbnb needs, right? Okay, now let's go to social and let's really understand what Instagram needs. We started to figure out what Instagram needed to really get us momentum there. And then we moved over to TikTok, and that started taking off. And it's just all of these skills stack on top of each other and benefit you long term. But you can't just all of a sudden rush to the end and be like, I want a full calendar of direct. If no one knows your brand and knows who you are, you can't do that. So it makes sense to start at the OTAs, start small to really get the momentum rolling, get those reservations coming in, get those, start training those muscles of updating your listing, because that's going to carry so far into the future for you once you start getting to the point of social media marketing, email marketing, keywords, things like that. So
couldn't agree more.
Yeah, it's SEO optimization is so key. And you mentioned a course. I know we're working to spin that up. I can refer to that in the show notes today, but hopefully have that here ready soon for you guys. I think it's tremendously valuable, but it's very simple. It's straightforward on what you need to do. It's not rocket science. What we're going to unveil is nothing that's earth shattering, but it's beneficial, and it's what the algorithm needs. At the end of the day, it shouldn't be rocket science, because if you're doing that, I say you're doing it wrong. There's no.
I'll say rocket scientists didn't invent the algorithm. So if it takes one to figure it out, then we're doing something wrong there. That's for sure.
Exactly.
The last 3 consulting calls that I've been on, the underlying theme of those consulting calls was permission. They didn't need any earth-shattering advice from me about what I'm doing. They needed permission to do the small thing. Right. And they're like, oh, so like I was talking to someone, and she was like, well, how do I have that much content? And I was like, well, give me your content topics right now. She didn't. Right. And I was like, this one content topic is 20 posts. It's 20 different things. We went through all of that. And that's exactly what this course is. It's permission to do the small thing and then go back to work. Right. You don't need to overinflate it. You don't need to redo your entire listing, maybe one day, but you don't need to do that today in order to rank better. You just need to be consistent and do the small thing. It walks you through every click of every little thing. And I'm so excited for it.
Yeah, definitely excited to share that with you guys. And it's removing the blinders from people of what they see every day. It's they don't realize what they need to do is right in front of them. And it's so obvious. It's so obvious. And the small things matter. The details matter. We always talk about that. And the details of your listing also pay dividends and also matter.
100%.
All right. Well, that does it. Another episode of the Hideaway Show Behind the Curtain edition. I'm Jordan Holmes. He's Mike Sebastian. Until next time, take care, everyone.